Hello, everyone. I'm really glad you're here. I am Mercedes Kirkel. I am the guide and facilitator of the Magdalene Heart Path online course. This course is based on the channeled teachings that I received from Mary Magdalene. And those teachings are all recorded in the book, Mary Magdalene Beckons, Join the River of Love. She has since elaborated on those teachings, so I have been the beneficiary of much wisdom from Mary Magdalene about this process. But it all started with the book Mary Magdalene Beckons. And where the course came out of was after I put the book out, which was in 2012, I had people contacting me, wanting to do sessions with me, and they would tell me that they loved the book, that it changed their life, it was so profound. And then we would start working with some situation in their life that they were having some challenge with. And I would ask them to engage the process, and I saw that they didn't really know how to. They could do it if I guided them, but I wanted to empower people to be able to do it on their own. And that's what Mary wants too, I'm quite sure. Out of that experience happening many times, that's where I got the inspiration to create this course, because I was really trusting that if people would stick with me through the sessions, that by the end they would have the tools they needed to do this on their own. And they would be able to internalize it and be able to use it in their own life and with others as well. It's really worked. I've taught this course to many, many people, and the people who've gone with it have really said, now they're ready, now they're empowered. So this is the process that I found to be really effective for people. And this is some of the feedback I've gotten from participants that gives me the feedback that it's not just me saying this, that they too are having really profound experiences and that it's been so valuable for them. So what I'd like to do now is move into doing a demonstration of the process. And if we have time, we might be able to do more than one.
Well, I have one that I've been struggling with. I read the book and I've been using the book and I understand what's going on. But in the midst of things, I don't have the emotional mastery to be clear enough to follow through.
Yes.
So the situation is fear, and I have a horse that I've been working with, and I know she's in my life for me to grow. And what happens is when I go to load her in a trailer, I've been injured before when loading a horse in a trailer, and so I have some baggage that I've worked on. But the anticipation of doing that process of getting the horse, loading it, causes the fear to come up. And by the time I go out to handle her, my heart rate is up, and I'm not being the leader that I need to be, because horses are herd animals, and she picks up on my anxiety and it's like, okay, I need to be afraid of something. And she stops thinking and she just starts reacting. And then we get in a vicious circle. And I eventually get her in the trailer. But the process is so exhausting emotionally that it takes the fun out of going anywhere. I'm getting better at it, but my problem is, how do you deal with the situation prior to you actually getting involved in it?
So like most situations in our life that matter to us, there's some complexity here. There's your feelings before, your feelings during, your feelings after. This has been going on for a long time, so your feelings about the pattern, that it's continuing. And then there's the horse and the horse's feelings that come up. So even in what in some ways you could say is a relatively well-defined situation, there's still complexity and layers. So the first thing that we want to do in this process of shifting out of our head and all the things we're thinking about the situation, because that's what we've been trained to do. How do I fix this?
Right.
And our minds are these wonderful tools for, coming up with ideas. Well, I have to understand the problem, I have to analyze it, and I have to look at, how to solve it. This is a whole different pathway where instead of thinking, we're going to go into our feeling. So let's pick one real time. Think of a recent time where this happened.
Okay.
And I'm imagining the description would be you were trying to load the horse into the trailer on this particular time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we're down to one time. We've simplified already. And what I found is this is like the drop of water that reflects the whole ocean. When we work with one moment where a feeling comes up and get to the root of it, it shifts everything. It's part of the nature of our reality, where when we make a shift for real at the heart in one incident, everything shifts. So on this particular incident, you were trying to load the horse into the trailer, and the feelings that came up for you were the feelings that I heard were fear and anxiety. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're in touch with the feelings, fear and anxiety. And again, what most people have learned, our training by and large, is when those kind of feelings come up, how can we get out of it? How can we stop it? How can we make it go away? Mary's point of view is very different. She's saying that fear and anxiety is actually a gift. And to receive the gift, you need to open to it. And one of the descriptors she gives for this is allowing ourselves to merge with that fear and anxiety. One of my favorite chapters in Mary Magdalene Beckons is where she describes this, and I believe it's either chapter 3 or 4, where she talks about it feels like going into a dark cave and and just giving yourself into it instead of trying to pull back and get out of it. And that what happens when we do that is usually very different from what we think is going to happen. We oftentimes think that it's going to get worse. We may never get out of it. This is going to really magnify the problem, whatever that is. And instead, this is the pathway through to really heal it at its source. So going into that fear and that anxiety, and then she gives tools for what to do when we go into that fear and anxiety. And she says, at the source is some beautiful part of ourselves that we have gotten disconnected from, and that those feelings are pointing us to. They're actually not only showing us that we've gotten disconnected from some part of what she calls our inner divine qualities, our inner divinity, but they actually help us find which part is it. They actually are part of the map, the GPS, to find that place so we can heal it and reconnect. And part of what we learn in the course is this system for using the feelings as our guidance, as our GPS back to our divinity. So you said something, Peg, that gave me a guess. I'm guessing that fear and anxiety is coming out of your wanting to be safe because you have suffered injuries in the past. So now when you load this horse, this big animal, into the trailer, you experience fear and anxiety because you want to be safe in that situation. Is that right?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to keep going. We're not quite there yet. But what I want to say about this is safety is one of our inner divine qualities. These inner divine qualities are kind of like our spiritual DNA. They're all the different pieces and parts that all together make up our beautiful human divine nature. But all of us, a part of our humanness is that we want to be safe, that's a very human longing, and that our ultimate safety is with God. And the source of all of these inner divine qualities are ultimately with God. But in our human third dimensional life, we want to bring that divinity into life. And so it's natural for us to want to express and manifest those inner divine qualities, and in this case, safety in life. And sometimes we get these ideas that if we're really spiritual, we shouldn't need that. It shouldn't be necessary. We should be able to go through anything and just, be like saints, be godly, stay connected to the divine. But Mary is saying that's one aspect of our being that is true, that there's a part of us, and she calls this you could call it our transcendent part, or what shows up as the more masculine aspect, which is that we have a part of us where our divinity is not affected by the events of life. It's just always there. And we can tap into that always ongoing divine nature. But there's another aspect. This is like the yin and the yang, the two aspects, which is the more feminine aspect of our divinity, which is about how our divinity shows up in life. And in our feminine aspect, we're very affected by all of the events of life, and we have choice as to how we respond. And one of our, from Mary Magdalene's point of view, most important choices is, are we going to respond in a way that supports us staying connected to our divinity? So in this case, we want to support you staying connected to that divine nature of safety. And to do that, what I want to ask you to do is a little practice right now where you go inside, and it often helps people to close their eyes, to be more focused on their own self and what's happening at the core. And then find the place in you that knows what it's like to be safe, to have that safety already fulfilled that you are longing for in this situation. You might consider it like your inner pool of safety. And when you find that place, let yourself merge with it. If you're seeing this as a pool, you might want to just immerse yourself in that pool of having the safety that you long for. Okay, were you able to do that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wonderful. And what did you experience when you did that? What was it like for you? What happened?
Well, I had to slow down and not react as much, and be more present to, I don't want to say being more in control, but being more aware and thoughtful of what's going on, and not wanting to rush and just get the heck out of there.
Okay, so for my own clarity, I want to ask a few questions because I'm not exactly sure by what you're saying what happened. So was this a process you were trying to apply, or was this an experience you were having where you experienced slowing down and being more present?
I experienced it.
Okay.
And it was like things just opened up and calmed down.
And how did you feel when you had that experience?
Like it was going to be okay.
So reassured, calm, maybe more peace?
Yeah, and not, in the past I might have been frantic, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And this was more like just, it's going to be okay.
Trusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And noticing how it felt different from other times.
Instead of being constricted, I was open and flowing.
All right. Thank you. So now I want to ask you to do another thing, which is to do your best to stay connected to this place inside you that had these experiences, this trusting, slowing down, sense that it was going to be okay, more peace. And so all of those as being connected to your inner wellness, your inner well of safety. And then bring in the situation of loading your horse into the trailer and see if you can stay connected to both at the same time.
I felt myself shifting back and forth,
Hmm.
from getting out of control with anxiety and being present.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the, the goal wasn't necessarily to get her in the trailer anymore. The goal was for me to be present and be the leader so that whatever we achieved would be okay.
Okay, so that sounds to me, if I'm understanding it right, like there was a little shift that happened, and then you went kind of into another program of how to fix it. Of, okay, if I can be the leader here, then I can get her in and communicate that everything's okay, blah, blah, which sounds a little bit like you shifted out of that direct accessing your,
Probably, yeah.
yeah.
That's not how easy.
Yes, that's that muscle that we're developing. If we're dealing with a pattern that's been going on over time, so it has some momentum to it because it's been happening over and over, and also something that came out of something that was really significant to us, which it sounds like this injury was a real trauma that happened that is real in your system still, that it takes some time. And sometimes the initial step is just to kind of want to cocoon in a certain way, to really have that deepening of that experience of what it is to stay connected to that inner place, in this case of safety. And sometimes what I suggest to people is keep practicing, like maybe over the course of this week, regularly come back once a day, twice a day, whatever's natural for you, come back and tune into this place again and start to get stronger at
Right.
reconnecting with this place, because that tendency to disconnect may be a strong pattern at this point.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And what I want to point out about this is one of the key elements of this process that's so different. What Mary is saying is that we are not really suffering directly from the outer events of our life. That in this case, as an example, what she was suffering, struggling with, was not her fear, and it was not getting the horse in the trailer. It was that she had gotten disconnected from her inner divinity and is now even at a place where it's kind of a pattern, this disconnection from inner divinity. So what she's struggling with is this somewhat ingrained pattern now of disconnecting. But it's in her, it's not out there in the events of life. The events of life do affect us. We're not immune to life, but the effect is not to cause our suffering. The effect is what you might look at as the events of life shock us. In this case, I'm guessing especially that original injury shocked you, and you got disconnected from your inner sense of safety. But the difference is the work is not to change the events of life. The work is to change and strengthen your connection to your inner sense of safety, and then to bring that into life. to bring your wholeness into life. And then you may choose to change things, but you'll be changing them not from the place of being disconnected from your wholeness. You'll be changing them from your wholeness to align with that, to support that more in you. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So it's actually, may not be obvious so much in this moment, but it's a very different way of relating to life. From I have to change all of this to I got disconnected, I need to reconnect and then see what I choose to do from there, from my wholeness.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything you'd like to express about how that process was for you?
Oh, it was very helpful because it's hard for me to put it into words. On an emotional level, it made sense. And I can see how what I've experienced is that trauma, for me anyway, has resulted in me being disconnected.
Right.
And so then a pattern develops, and it just becomes a vicious circle.
And what we tend to do is we try to deal with the pattern, fix the pattern, but we're not getting to the root, which is healing the trauma, which is ultimately your disconnection from that part of your God self.
So,
yeah.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions about what we just engaged?
I don't have a question as much as I have a statement and through this story, just trying to wrap my head around this. So if our innate divine gift coming into this lifetime was safety, am I saying that right? Like we were born being safe, and then being born in this 3D world with our crazy families and life happening, we have this emotional reality that's personal to everyone. So when things happen and these feelings are triggered, it's a symptom that we're disconnected. But the truth was, we came in with this safety and we're trying to reconnect with that and realize it. This is from a bird's eye point of view.
Yes, I love it. Thank you.
You know what so we came in, so the gift is we have this safety as a birthright. I don't know how else what language to say it. And
I would say it as we came in as divine beings, already knowing our safety in God, our ultimate safety.
Okay.
And we came in wanting to express that here in 3D. And every time we were maybe frustrated in some way with expressing that, we got shocked. Maybe this is a place where I'm not safe. Oh my gosh. And we had a shock. And even babies have that shock. Like babies, when they think they might be falling, they have shock. And that shock of not having the safety that they know. They know what it is to be safe. And optimally, we keep healing that. We keep reconnecting to that sense of safety. And then as we grow and have more and more abilities from the time we're a baby, we get more and more skilled in supporting ourselves having that safety here. But the reality is, in 3D, we never are ultimately safe here. It's an illusion to think that we're going to be safe. All of us are vulnerable. All of us can be injured physically, emotionally, in other ways. But our divine safety, our safety in God is untouchable. It never goes away. But sometimes we go away from it. And what this is saying is our path to happiness and to really empowerment and being able to do what we came here to do is to learn how to stay connected to that divine aspect that never goes away. And that's what we're really connecting to here. Is that helpful?
Well, it does, because that just probably sums up my life, which has been shock and craziness. And then with my intellect, trying to fix the patterns and fix the circumstances to feel safe.
Right.
I mean, regardless
that
of
sums
what
it up for so many of us.
Right.
That's the program that our culture by and large has taught. And there have been reasons for that. But without needing to go into it, that's brings us up to the present for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And now we have this opportunity to do something else, because the mental program is not ultimately successful in and of itself. It's helpful as in teamwork. Once we reconnect with this inner divine process, and then we are already coming from that wholeness, then the mind is so helpful to help us come up with creative ideas of how to support that in life. But if we're using the mind to eclipse this other thing, we never are really satisfied.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments about watching that demonstration, or anything that you've heard in my speaking here? It can fool us sometimes, because we're just using the natural things that come up in life. And so it can just seem like, oh, this is just something like self-help, something to help us handle life better. And it can be used that way. But that's not what Mary is talking about. Mary is talking about a profound spiritual process that's going to shift us into our heart, that's going to empower our feminine to unite with our masculine, and that's really going to allow us to engage this ascension process that she is really wanting to support people in, and moving into the higher dimensions. But this is our work to fulfill here as the foundation for that. So yes, this is an ongoing spiritual practice. I tell people it's like beginning to take on Buddhism and have a Buddhist practice. It's the degree to which you're going to engage this as an ongoing process that's going to determine how far it takes you, how much transformation you experience.
Well, and while you were talking, what occurred to me in my brain, a visualization, is that the anxiety and worry and frustration that I was holding on to, when you release that, then there's space for divinity to come in.
Yes. Which is always already there. It's kind of like the sun being occluded by clouds. And the clouds are all the other things that we're doing in our stress, and then our thinking to try to fix the stress, and all, our trying to do all those things. Those are the clouds covering the sun. But we are allowing the emotions to take us right through those clouds to where we can see the sun again.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So that's what I have to offer, and I thank all of you for joining me, and I hope that you choose to join me in the course, and look forward to going deeper with all of you and sharing this process that I love so much and that I've seen to be so powerful for so many people.